Hello, I'm Jack McCoy. Welcome to my channel, Singerman USA, second volume of Mastering the Art of Singing. And going to approach a variety of subjects in our little workshop of Mastering the Art of Singing. And I do have a website called Singerman USA. Go check that out, singermanusa.com. And there's a variety of things there, which I'll talk about a little bit now. But last week we basically talked about, on my website was a page called Memoirs of a Gondolier, and that is a page that was devoted to my experiences as a gondolier, and mostly about learning people about how the ways they first met, and little love stories, and I make little parodies about them right on the gondola. And I got quite an accumulation of love stories, and so I kind of made a little book about that and kind of what it's like to be a gondolier and that sort of thing. This week I talked a little briefly about on the page that says Journey to the Heart. That was an album project I put together from a variety of songs I wrote some years back that I just kind of wanted to condense and put into one place. And it took a long time. I didn't have much money to put all that together. I think about once a month I saved up like about $50 and for 2 hours and would drive out of the country to a fellow named Burke Harris, who had something called Soundtrack Studios, and buy a couple hours of time. I practiced on this little 4-tracker that could ping pong into a 10-channel thing, and so I could kind of practice before I got there, because I did lay tracks down on both the keyboard and I did singing stuff. So those are all songs I've written. And check that out. I mean, there's little highlights on that page, a little variety of samples of things you can listen to. The one thing, if you might take interest in, if you're ever planning a wedding or thinking for wedding music, there's one song called My Greatest Love. And if you all want to use that for your wedding, or even perform it or whatever, just let me know. I'm probably agreeable to that. I'm looking to make any money off that. It would be nice if you want to use that. Anyway, so moving on, today's topic I would like to address, first of all, this little device right here. This is called a pitch pipe, and you can find one of these in your local music stores, and actually that's my preferred way to support local businesses, particularly people who are providing music services and instruction, all that kind of thing for the local communities. They need your support like everybody else does. And usually comes a little box like this. It used to be as little as $10 when I first started buying these things. I think they're about 3 times that much now. So you can get those there, and if not, you can probably find them online. And also, surprisingly enough, there's an app that you can get that's a pitch pipe app, and you can just load it right on your phone. And this one is made by, say, the Masterly pinched instrument. I think Hohner makes a lot of these or whatever, but this one's made in USA. And what this is, if you haven't seen one before, is a lot easier to carry around with you than a piano, but it's what they call chromatic. And chromatic basically is that it'll move by all the numbers of half steps all the way through to an octave, which basically it means 8. And I'd like to pick the one that goes from C to C. You can pick a variety of these things, but for me that kind of settles into where my voice settles. I kind of center around a low C, and when I do my warm-ups, then I kind of start from there and I go up over an octave, but it's just that it kind of fits into my voice range. And when you get one of these little devices anyway, yeah, like I said, you might figure out where your voice kind of settles. But the point of this is, what I mentioned in the last volume, was that first thing is kind of get used to listening to your sound outside. In other words, not just the sound that comes around inside of your ear and inside of your head, but that changes some objectivity, which means, hear the sound like it sounds to everybody else. And when you get used to kind of putting your sounds in that part of your ear where you hear it on the outside, that's it. You're going a long ways towards freeing up your voice and making it sound better, and all the voice becomes in line. That's kind of a term sometimes you hear in classical music. It's putting your voice in line. Is like all the notes all kind of string together, like I said before, like pearls on a necklace. If you put them all together, it makes it sound even better, because all the sounds are very consistent to one beautiful tone. And these move in half increments, whether you read music or not. These are very useful. Now, what I want to use this for today is what they call vocalises. And it's important that even when you're not singing, and particularly when you're not singing, to do vocalises, because this kind of allows your voice to grow and expand and richen and everything else there is too, and also get kind of used to hearing your voice on the outside. And for example, now I use like I said, a C2C. And what I suggest you do is get yourself maybe a little journal or something, but some way to keep track of this is that use this little booger and kind of do this little vocalese I'm going to show you here, and kind of work it till you find out where your low note is, where your lowest note is, and make note of that. Put the date and what that note is on this little scale here. You look at it and see where it is. What does it say, B or B flat or whatever, and you want to put that on your little diary. And then also you're going to keep working this up till you get to your high note. And when you get to the point where you're kind of pretty much your highest note, you're going to make a note of that. And so on this date, this is like your high note. And this is one way you can kind of see if you're growing, because basically singing is like any other muscle you got. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it, as they say. But the more you use it, the more it strengthens. And honestly, there's times when your upper note's going to sound god-awful, and you're going to think, oh, I don't want to sound like that. That sounds terrible. But this is what they call workshopping. It's like if you woodshed, working at things in your own space and your own time, and then you finally get to the point where it richens and it develops into something, then you feel better about, singing in front of other people. But unless you go to the trouble of getting at some of those registers where you don't really feel incredibly comfortable with the way you sound, well, just give it a chance. Work your voice up in all ranges of low and range, and the chances are you're going to work your vocalises way past lower than you're probably going to need to sing, and probably way past higher than you're going to need to sing. But once you're strong in all these ranges, that where you sing is going to be real solid notes. And so this first exercise is just going to be NEH, like NEH. And what this part of this doing is like putting the voice in line. It's like being able to kind of hear yourself in this NEH sound. It's kind of like a pure vowel sound that's sort of just, you can get used to kind of hearing your voice outside. Now I'm going to kind of show you how I go about this. I'm going to find my low note. I'm going to first start with a C. Let's see if that's anywhere close to where I'm going to start at. This goes C to C, so there's a low C and a high C. NEH, 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 NEH. So that's like my lowest note right there. See how that's a C? Like my lowest note is kind of like a low C. And I'm going to do that kind of thing. Now, I was just doing it without blowing the pitch pipe. But see, if you blow it and you start, when the future, you start with your low note, you go, and then you start there. But then keep going up like a half step at a time. Go, NEH, 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 NEH. See where I'm getting at there? Just kind of keep going up, and as you get to your upper registers, where it keeps getting where it's getting a little sketchy up there, get as far up there as you can. And when you figure out what that note is, look at your little doohickey here and see what it says. It's going to be everywhere from C. And what they call the enharmonic is that you're going to go like, going up, you're going to go like C. Then it's like C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp. I kind of think you know what I'm kind of getting at here. But you'll notice your little pipe, and you keep going up, keep going up. You're probably going to go over an octave range, which means you're going to go up over, I'm going to go over a C on the top, and I'm going to keep going a ways. Now, typically, when I would work up, I would go below a low C, get down there as far as I go. I've been down there as far as like a low A flat, and or say a G sharp, going on the lower register. And on the upper register, I would go like up to about a G sharp and an A. And I typically don't sing in that range, but that really expands my range out a lot. And there is one song that I hit right on the top. I haven't done in a long time, but it was "This Is My Beloved" by from a musical called Kismet. It's a beautiful song, but it starts off just bang right on the top on the G. And for a guy like me, I'm a bass baritone. That's more or less in the higher baritone range, but because I've worked with my voice and I've studied classically, that basically gives me a real good root place to start with to really strengthen and expand my range. And honestly, when I first started, my voice was a very registered low range, and it was hard to get past, certain notes. I had like a high D, I think was like my highest note I could ever get, and it was a struggle. And then I remember I did Portland. We worked with the Portland Junior Symphony, and we did actually did that with the Oregon Symphony as well. We did the Ode to Joy by Beethoven, and the choral part, when you would turn the page, was high Fs all the way across, and that was like right at the top of my range. And before I had really studied much, that was killer, But the fact is, you got there and you did it, and you just kept doing it. You're inspired by all the orchestra playing and everything. Well, then that became, I learned that I had to, expand my range and things to get more comfortable on those high notes. But so anyway, you kind of see what I'm doing. Like I said, make yourself a little journal. Keep track of what the date it is, where your low note is, where your high note is. Take a look at your little device here and figure out where that is. And also, in the meantime, that's just the first exercise I want to give you. And I want to give you a second one here, because see how it's nah is pretty much the same nah. So it's pretty easy to stay in line because you're using just one sound. But when you're singing, you're making a whole variety of songs. You're going switching back and forth between vowels and consonants and all that kind of thing. So how in the heck you can to keep your voice in line when you're doing that? Well, it's because you get used to doing it. And vocalises are a real easy way to do that, because you can practice switching sounds without switching the placement of your voice. And the second one I want to give you today is exactly that. It's going to go from an eh to an ah sound, and yet, if you listen carefully, I'm going to try to put those in the same exact spot. It's going to start off with my low note, go, and go to my C again. Nah, nah. I'm going to start lower. Nah, ha, nah, ha, nah, ha. So I'm starting on an E there. Now I'm going to go up. Ne ha, ne ha, ne ha, ne ha, ne ha, ne ha. So you hear those sounds are like nah, ha, and they're like in the same place. That's what you want to do. And that gets used to switching C different sounds, and yet trying to keep the voice in the same place. And also a little thing you might notice, that while you're doing this, if you start in one key, you start there, and you get through singing, if you're in that same note, you've gone a long ways to learning how to stay in pitch. Because when you're singing, you have to stay basically in the keys that are being played by the instruments and the other people singing around you. And this can be a challenge sometimes for people who are not used to having much vocal training and not started from a place where they naturally would sing a lot. It's like you'll notice you might be not be in the same key anymore, and that's something you might take note of, because now you got to practice and trying to stay in the same key when you do little vocalises. And madrigal singing, like I said, is really good. Singing a cappella, like if you want to get used to singing songs, pick a song you like. Make sure what key it is when you first start. And when you get to the end, you should be in the same key. Like you started in E, and then you at the end of the song, you're still in E. That's a good sign. That means you're staying in pitch, because there's a lot of what they call pitch relativity. It's like between all these notes you're singing, you're switching around this, that, and the other thing. And if you're, sometimes when you don't have much training or whatever, you're not really paying attention. You're kind of shaving off the pitch on places. You're kind of going under in places. And guys typically tend to sing under on a note. And women sometimes typically can go on the sharp side. And usually those have to do with, if you get nervous and stuff, that affects a lot of how you're singing. I notice a lot of times when people audition or whatever, they tend to go sharp because they're kind of nervous and stuff, and they're kind of pushing maybe a little too much, and it sounds like they're starting to go out of pitch a little bit. And that's the things that we're going to address in the future, is like when you're auditioning, tips and things, that how you train, so when you get to that point that you're so rock solid, you can sing in a storm, and you don't have to worry about, what's all going around here, because there's a lot of stuff going on around here. There's a lot of waiting, and people are singing, you're getting distracted, you're waiting for your time, and there's a lot of things going on. But if you're rock solid, you know what you're doing, it's like then, you're doing as best that you can do. So anyway, this is pretty much really the thing I want to say today. Did we see the sphere in the background there? You can't see much of it today. This is loosely referred to as the Sphere series, for me anyway. Because if you ever go to Vegas, put that on your list. TheSphere.com. You can kind of check out more about it, but it's a pretty awesome experience. And even just the level you can go in there and just catch the local thing they call postcards from Earth is really cool. They have shows that do venues and stuff that started off with U2 in there, and boy, they really attracted quite a crowd. Those guys when they came here, they kicked off the thing earlier this year. Anyway, so thanks. I hope you're getting something out of this. Now, if you like this, the old plug is, hey, subscribe to my channel. And yeah, if you're getting something out of this, and I really like to work with people who are maybe just starting out. Particularly, I try to gear this down so it's kind of entry level. So people who are mastered already, some of this is be snoozer to you, but there's also some things you might learn that I learn from other singers sometimes, listening to them and that kind of thing. I always pick up some little thing from them. But anyway, so I hope you enjoy, and if you find somebody that really enjoys music and wants to do it, just put a share and send it over to them, so let them check it out, because there'll be a series of things, like I said. So thank you so much. Ciao, you guys. Till later. Till next time.